Audio check, 1, 2.
Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, September 9th, 2020 Planning Board meeting for the town of Raymond. The planning board will come to order. The board does have a quorum and we will start by holding roll call. We'll start with probably Ed would be best so I can keep everyone in order here. You're still muted, Ed. Autumn,
Here.
okay.
Ed Kranich. To get
Greg
that,
Paul.
managers here.
Right here. Kevin Woodbury,
Kevin Woodbury.
and we're Bruce Sanford. Bruce?
You hear me?
Yep, got you now. Okay.
I'm here.
All right, this is a public proceeding unless about publicly, specifically votes to go into executive session. You have the right to hear everything that's being said and to look at all the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chair if you are unable to see or hear. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. We have a tabled application from Jeffrey Buckley, and then we have a review of the finding and facts for the final vote for the high wire hydroponics. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances or state law. After the board votes on the merits of each application, it will prepare a written notice of decision because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeals rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regard to a specific application not leave until the board has completed its discussion. Appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the Superior Court or as otherwise provided by law within 45 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual rights to file any such appeal, you must be certain that the board's records evidences your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis of your opposition. All right. So we left off with the tabled application, and just to kind of brief, and Jim and Alex kind of jump in if what I'm saying is wrong for a kind of a brief. The applicant was requesting a waiver for a backlot driveway. However, no backlot application has been submitted. So the board tabled, we lost kind of communications. We thought the best thing to do was to table the application. But during that process, in accordance with the ordinance, the planning board assumed the approval authority for the application. So honestly, what I was expecting this evening was to be looking at a backlot application, because the planning board cannot grant a waiver to a non-existing application. We have to have something that we are reviewing an application to grant a waiver. So what I propose that we do this evening is that the tabled application be withdrawn, and we insert a pre-application meeting tonight. In that pre-application meeting, we can discuss the waiver. Jeffrey and Rick, you will get a flavor for whether or not the board is going to approve that waiver or not, but there will be no vote. Then you can submit the application, formally request the waiver with that application, and we can then act on that application. Does that sound acceptable to the board?
Yeah.
Ed, okay?
I was we can really handle it at this point.
Yeah, I'm acceptable with that.
Craig, I missed you. I'm sorry. You okay?
Yes. Yep.
Kevin?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So it's to Jeffrey and Rick. Are you willing to withdraw the application and then we'll consider this as a pre-application meeting?
Yes, Rick Light here. Yes, we agreed to do that. And I think that makes a lot of sense what you're proposing.
Okay. All right. So what we have then tonight is the tabled application is being withdrawn, and we are going to review a backlot driveway application as a pre-application meeting. There will be no vote, but you'll get a feeling for what the board is looking at. So to that, then I'll turn it over to Jim. If you could kind of give us a rundown of things that have changed since the last meeting.
I'll do my best. Rick, I know you'll back me up here if I run afoul here, but I believe what we've done a couple of things. One, we've given the information to the town's attorney, who has given us some feedback And we've also received from the applicant a little bit of the title history involved with this to understand how we got to the location that we've literally got to here with this driveway. So I think the way I'll go about it is give you a little bit of the history. From what I can tell, the lot that is now Griffiths and Miller and now Buckley was all under the ownership of Miller at one point. And I believe it was 2008 or sometime around then, Miller cut off a front lot for what is now Griffiths. It may not have been Griffiths at the time, but it is now. And through that creation, he created a legitimate lot with frontage. But what happened is then it took away from the Miller lot, which is technically in the rear, away from his legal frontage. But he created a right-of-way to his property, and then also created another division of property in the back, which is now the Buckley lot, and divided that lot off. All fine and good, except that he kind of messed up, and the town kind of messed up by issuing a building permit. It basically gave Miller in the back standing as a non-conforming lot because he didn't technically have the legal frontage, because the back lot driveway was never approved for Miller. He kind of created that when he cut off the front lot. So it's what I call a reverse back lot, in that the back lot was really created first, and then the front lot came along and kind of stole the frontage from the back lot. With that said, our conversation with the town's attorney was the best way to probably clear this up is to make this driveway a backlot driveway such that Miller gains his necessary frontage and Buckley can gain his necessary frontage by the creation of this back lot. We understand that there's some criteria we have to go through here with regards to where this backlot driveway is, but essentially it's already, can't say already, it's a non-conforming situation that was never approved by the town, essentially. And so to make everything just clear, titles and everything, it was recommended this is what we should look at, because in part, everybody's kind of made some mistakes along the way here. Miller, maybe with no intention, basically cut off his own road frontage, and the town, by issuing the permit to, I don't know, I can't remember the name at the time, but the Griffiths lot created a nonconformity for the back. So everybody's got a little finger in the pie here, and we're just trying to make it right. I understand that, the board should have some concern because of the proximity of the Pettis and the Griffiths lot as it compared to this driveway lot. However, I would like to point out that, I don't believe that one more residential lot is going to tip the apple cart as far as safety goes in here. But if, this were become a private road and there were several more lots in here in the future, then we might have a situation where we really need to look at all of these driveways. I think Alex and I agree with the town's attorney that we should do our best to make this work and limit the number of lots coming off this backlot driveway. Under the backlot provision, we're allowed 2 back lots. So technically, if you do approve the back lot, Buckley's lot would be the last lot allowed under that scenario. Any further development in that property would have to come back and convert the back lot to a private way. And depending on how that is done, it would determine the size of the road and the number of lots in there and everything like that. I think if the board is amenable, I think that is the correct way to go about this. I do understand you need to consider the safety because of the proximity of these other driveways, but just understand, we've got 3 residents there now accessing 3 different driveways. We're putting in a 4th. The Miller lot, I didn't state this in any of the memos, but I believe the Miller lot would have to take on a backlot driveway address at this point. So that one would have to conform to the backlot driveway name and address change. The other 2, I don't think necessarily do have to, but I'll let Rick describe the situation and the separation of those lots going forward.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Does the board have any questions, Jim, before we go to Rick? Okay, Rick, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Jim, thanks for the synopsis. Hopefully this time, and I apologize for the last meeting. Hopefully you can all hear me now. And my Karen, I'm on my wife's machine because I didn't want to have that same issue happen again. So, yeah, Jim's synopsis was pretty clear. I want to say one thing in terms of the history. The big 40-acre piece, which is all of these 3 lots, was actually 1979. It came into Miller, and 1988 he built a house. So at the time, when Mr. Miller built a house, and do you mind if I go to share screen to help kind of point this out?
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay. And give me a second here. I'm going to fly through these really quickly to get to a plan.
Whoever the controllers of the meeting has to give you permission. Did they set you up?
Okay.
Mary?
If you can make me a host. Can you folks see the share screen? Have I been accepted yet?
Nope, not yet. Mary's
Okay.
ready. By 2024, we'll have all this down.
Yes. While Mary's doing that, if I want to keep talking anyway to keep things moving, it was Miller built a house in 1988 on the full 40 acres of these 3 lots combined, which it was a legal lot, 38 to 40 acres, and it had legal frontage, 233 feet. And it was 2000. He built his residence in 1988. He'd owned the land since 79. And in 2000, he broke off the 2-acre front lot, reserving himself a right of way, which is now the Griffith lot. So it happened in 2000, basically 20 years ago. Yeah. And it was 2008 when he broke off what's now the Buckley lot in the back with the right of way.
Okay.
Okay.
I think Mary shared her screen, she didn't give permission for Rick's screen. I'm
That's
we're
okay.
seeing-
We've all have it in front of us.
yeah, that's Mary's screen.
Yeah, I mean, we all have what Rick is describing in front of us, unless there's something new that you're adding, Rick.
Really, all I see is Mary's screen.
That's
No,
all
that's
I
okay. I
see.
just see you guys, a little bit of you.
Hang on.
All I see is a Google screen.
Right, that's Mary's computer.
Yeah. That's all I see.
No plans or anything like that on it.
No. Yeah, all I have is Mary's screen.
Yeah, Mary needs to.
Yeah,
You need to unshare your screen, Mary. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Perfect, Barry.
then
Now
go to,
just-
That's good.
Okay, let me try the share screen again see if this works. Okay.
Mary, did you give Rick permission to share his screen?
well, I'm still trying to figure out where that is.
Okay. So Rick, is there anything that you want to show us that we don't have in front of us on the plans?
Just a few exhibits, but why don't I'll walk through while she's doing that, and just the graphics I think help.
Okay.
But and we appreciate, by the way, all the efforts of Mary and Alex and Jim sort of getting their heads together to sort of figure out a way to make this work. And we received the memo from your legal counsel at Bernstein Sure today, and I think the approach that is being thrown out there, I think, makes sense. That because this is kind of a unique situation, I'd actually put together an opposing opinion that I won't get into, but based on the definitions of the ordinance, there may be a way to basically use the definitions just say wasn't actually a back lot, but we won't go down that route. I think this route makes sense as long as the board can come to a conclusion tonight that that allows them to have that we can go forward with a waiver with a straw poll vote that they would agree that we have a waiver on the 9.T.5.
Okay, so when we left the board discussion, we had two things. We were concerned on the safety of an extra traffic. We were concerned that the driveways
Well,
were
Now got,
close. And
I now got myself down to this. How the hell do I get out of this?
that's okay, Mary.
We could
Just
probably
kinda-
do that on the share screen.
And we were, we were concerned, safety of the issue, we were concerned the ordinance of 100 feet, and we were concerned as to how the actual back lot, Buckley lot became in existence.
Right.
Am I missing anything else that we were discussing that we were concerned with?
I think those were the key concerns. And so in the meantime, what we've done is we have, again, I had mentioned to Jim and Alex, we've engineered the plans for the back lot driveway. We didn't want to go forward with them until we knew which direction the board was going to take. But I think that the strategy tonight to move forward with that, if the board, so gets through the issue of the waiver, we would be prepared to, complete those, turn that application around. But we have done several things. We've reviewed the site distance, and I've got photographs if we get to share screen, but the site distance looking, let's say if you're exiting left, which would be north, down the hill, is over 1,000 feet. And the site distance to the right is about 400 feet plus going up the hill, and it's a 40-mile-an-hour zone. So I think the site distances meet the town standard. And absolutely, if Alex wants to verify, that's certainly acceptable. And at this point, like I said, I agree with Jim that it's a unique situation. It's tough to have these three driveways. The Griffith driveway we measured is about 52 feet from center line to center line. And the driveway, as you look at it up the hill, which is the Pettis driveway, which is Fire Lane 185, is about 62 to 65 feet to the center line. So under the ordinance, I think adding one additional lot, and in a way to keep it that way, the applicant would agree to a condition that says it would remain at two back lots and not to be further divided. Agreeable to you, Jeff? I don't know where Jeff is, but we've talked about that. So if that were a condition that would make the board more comfortable that there wouldn't be additional traffic other than one single family lot, we are totally agreeable with that as a condition. And that would be a covenant that could be placed on the lot, on the deed, or as a separate covenant and recorded.
Okay.
Go with the land.
I'm totally fine with that.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. The board have questions? Mike, did you get, I didn't know when you clicked in here. Did you hear Jim's narrative? You're muted. You're muted, Mike.
Can you hear now?
Yep.
Yeah, I came in and time enough to hear. And also I read Jim's email and the attorney's email as well.
Okay. So, Jim, is this, in looking at the application, is this our only problem area in the backlot driveway permitting with this particular application?
For what we've seen at this point, this is the big hiccup, yes.
Okay, and Rick, have you looked through the backlot ordinance and you feel everything else is meetable?
Yes.
Was that,
Yep.
Was that Rick? Was that you? You're muted, Rick.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, through the chair. Yes, we feel it is. I did discuss, just to be clear with Jim, that the 50-point requirement for stormwater, we think we can meet on the lot with a buffer. So we would be creating, a buffer for stormwater to go onto Jeff's lot from the road portion of roadway. And we think we can get the 50 points. Yeah.
Okay. So to the board, how do we feel now? I think one of the main issues was the development of how the Miller lot came into existence. We now know the kind of little bit of the history to that. We still have concerns along with the driveway connections. Anybody that's,
I agree with Jim's suggestions of how things evolved and how they could be handled in the future if they decide to break up that lot further. So I think it's pretty clear as long as those are stated when we, approve this.
yeah.
I
Greg,
just want to synopsize my understanding. I don't have the docs from 2 months ago in front of me. But my recollection from the photos of the lot is that the existing driveway into the house that abuts the road is not a very long driveway. I'm going to guess it's 75 to 100 feet long to the face of the garage, and that there is not 100 feet of separation available between the existing driveway and the proposed backlot driveway. And to relocate the existing driveway over to the area where the backlight driveway is proposed would create a rather tight S-curve into the existing area in front of the garage, which would make it kind of a clumsy entry. Am I remembering that correctly?
yeah, you, as far as I can tell, you are, Bruce.
Yeah, we don't have the actual locations of those other driveways on this plan, but I think you're pretty accurate in your description of what it would look like if we force them to tie into this backlot driveway. Just one correction is that that driveway to the mill lot exists now.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
For Rick to share screen, they tell me that at the bottom of his screen, he should click on share screen. I will get a message and I can accept.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Ed, what do you think?
You did.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with the general consensus that everyone else had. There's not really a reasonable way to fix it to conform with the regulations. Waiver in this situation is probably the right thing to do.
Mr. Chair, if I could, there is one other item, and I'm kind of glad Wayne is on the call here tonight. Looking at the configuration of this right away, I believe that is, Rick, you can clarify that. Is that actually as deeded today, and can that be amended? The only reason I ask that is one of the criteria we'll have to have is that radius from where that makes a hard right meet the fire truck turning radius to get into that.
Rick?
Through the chair, I guess, yeah, it's almost a 90-degree. What I would recommend is we take a template and look at that radius in there and meet with the chief and make sure that we can take his vehicle, that vehicle, wheelbase would work on that radius and make it as wide as we can. I can't say exactly what that is. It's close to a 90-degree, but.
Yeah, the only other way you might be able to do is you might be able to do a curved bubble or something like that for just that radius, but we can make it work. That's what I'm saying. You're not locked in with Miller. You have some flexibility to
if we had
adjust that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we'll work with the chief on that. Thank you.
I do have some info now if you guys want to hear it.
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
We had talked to, what's his name, Ben? Larry Kusala, which is the father of the guy that sold me the property. Because Josh has passed away since then. He had told us that they opened up that end of that right away for that exact reason, that the town had told them that they could do that for the fire trucks. Whether that's completely true, I don't know why he would lie to me, but he did tell us that, just so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, what we're talking about, I understand what you're saying as far as, I know they got a little loop in front of the existing Miller home, and maybe that does meet it. I think we're just talking about the piece that will cut off to the right to go to your lot.
Okay.
So Rick, I think from the comments of the board and how everything has shaped up, I think you can safely assume that a waiver would be favorably looked upon in conjunction with the application.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, through the chair, then moving forward, we'll prepare a formal is there a formal application form, Jim, for that?
There isn't. We use a site plan, but Alex has a kind of a draft form that you can use to assist you with that. we typically, it falls under site plan review, so you
Right.
can use the site plan application, but Alex has created one specifically for a backlot driveway to assist in this case and others as we move forward.
Okay.
The other thing I would like to suggest and to the chair as well, I know, Jeff, you're probably under the gun to get this moving. One suggestion I had placed, I think, in the memo I sent out this evening was that you guys, as well as doing your backlot application, you start thinking about your building permit application and get that in. There's quite a backlog of building permits right now, and so it's taking some time to get through those.
Sure.
So that if you get back to the meeting on, I think it's October 14th, hopefully Alex and staff have had a chance to review that such that if you do get approval that evening, you know, the next couple of days, you might be able to just wrap everything up and get your building permit so you can get going before the weather changes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Good.
So we'd like to at least work with you on that piece. And we won't issue the building permit until the planning board has approved it.
Okay.
Greg, did you have something to say? Greg?
No, I'm all set.
Okay.
I was saying good. I said all good.
Okay. All right, so
Mary
that's
has a
all.
question.
We'll be looking for an application. We'll be looking for a restriction of the 2 lots. We'll be making sure that we can get a, you'll have a fire letter from the fire department saying that the turn and layout is acceptable for the entrance driveway. And then I think as long as everything else meets, you'll be fine.
Great, and we'll submit through staff and work with Jim and Alex and any of the details.
Okay?
You'll need the other thing you'll need, which you'll need, it doesn't have to be executed until you have the occupancy of the second home, but we will need a homeowners association document for that driveway as well.
And through the chair, good point, Jim. The ordinance requires that the current deed does have a condition for maintenance of the roadway, a prorated shared maintenance with Miller. We'll submit that to staff to review. If they think it needs something a little more robust, we'd be happy to put it together. So I'll submit that to you and to Alex.
Yeah, as long as it has the responsible parties for the road and and whether it's a percentage breakdown or it's shared 50-50, that's all we're looking for, is to make sure that that is maintained in a clear passage for winter and for emergency access.
Right, okay, we'll submit what we have, and if you need something additional, just let us know.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions for the board, Rick?
No, I thank you all for your patience, and I thank everyone for trying to work through this kind of difficult issue in a creative way, and we really appreciate that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, our second order of business is the final vote for the findings of facts for the high wire hydroponics. Has everyone had a chance to read Jim's very late email on that?
All I basically did, just to give you guys an update, was really convert the last approval we had and just kind of update it. All the conditions that were there in 2017 apply going forward, as well as all the previous waivers. So it's just essentially, you guys said nothing changed in the application. You extended the approval. It's just at this time now they're under our new standards. So that approval is good for 4 years, 5 years, or something like that. So they have an extended period of time to get this project moving.
Okay, can I get a motion for anybody?
I move to extend the application for high wire hydroponics based on the previous approval for would it be one more cycle? One more.
We're not really extending the way we're going to be, we're actually
You're
approving.
just accepting the findings.
Right. So you
Okay.
find the fact.
All right. Well,
Is there a second?
you accept the findings.
Second.
All right, we have to have a Zoom. We need a voice vote. Let me go through. Ed,
Approve.
Greg,
Approve.
Evan,
Approve.
Bruce.
I have to abstain. I was not at the meeting in August.
Okay, thank you. Mike.
Approve.
All right, and I vote approve. The motion passes.
Okay, guys, going forward, what we'll do is we'll leave a copy of that at the town. I've also asked Rick to give us a new plan just so we can sign that and redate that plan, that site plan for that. So once we get that, we'll give you a shout. You can stop by the town. We'll make an arrangement for you to sign at some point.
Okay. So we'll come by and sign both.
Oh, Doc, yes, exactly.
Good. All right, Jim, do we have any other business?
Well, I don't, but I do want to just let you all know that this was a little trivial experience in our definitions. And I think as we move forward with 2021 suggestions, I think one of the things we might want to look at is the correlation of some of our definitions of street, road, right-of-ways. This kind of opened our eyes that there's still some existing old definitions in there that aren't compatible to where we really want to be. We've got multiple ordinances, and I think we need to do a careful perusal of those to make sure they're all coordinated together.
Okay. As it
They're not dancing together right now, and it's not unusual. Over time, things change. People have different interpretations of that. I'm sure where Raymond had a long-standing code enforcement officer, he probably understood exactly what it meant. We've had some changes, and everybody has a little different take, so the words really mean a lot now.
Okay.
And again, as I pointed out, Bob, I don't know what you want to do when you want to start having some workshops on some ordinances and things like that, but we should be, building our lists of things we might want to look at. I would put this as one of those that we want to take a look at.
Okay. We should start. Do we have any big applications coming down the road?
Not that I'm aware of. Alex, are you aware of any? I think other than this, I think it'll be it for next month.
Okay, so why don't we put a workshop on the agenda? Mary, why don't we put a workshop on the agenda for next meeting following the back plot? Which shouldn't take very long.
No, it'd just be
Do we have anything we need to do? Look at? Alex? You still with it?
As far as ordinances, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
I think it's a little too early for me to really tell. I think the definition thing was kind of the first one that I've run into that I kind of was looking at it like, oh boy, we should probably clean that up. I haven't really run into anything else substantial yet. But I can keep that in mind, I guess, for the next meeting and maybe come up with a few ideas, work with Jim on that.
I recall, Wayne, you might have had something that you might be interested in as well.
Right. A couple of things. One, if folks didn't know, the sprinkler ordinance and the code reference changes, we were asked to hold off on those. So we would like to present those again this year. And then looking at, some of these like family subdivisions and the different road standards. For a regular subdivision, we have in there doing the fire protection water supply, but we don't address it in other areas. And we'd like to speak to that issue.
Okay.
I'd like to see tiny houses looked at and possibly the use of shipping containers as permanent buildings or parts of permanent buildings.
Okay. Tiny houses is probably a good one to look at, get in front of.
Yeah, and I'm not aware, maybe Alex is. I know, has the state chimed in at all on tiny houses to this date? I know that right now, I think our ordinance requires you have to have a full foundation.
Yeah, the state had a few articles, I guess, that would have changed some stuff for tiny houses, but I don't think any of that stuff's actually gone through yet. The only thing that I think is really substantial at this point is newer versions of IRC have pretty detailed language for tiny homes, but it's not the version that we have currently adopted. But we could look at that and incorporate some of that in.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, Wayne, does that get into any life and safety with some of those buildings?
I don't know, speaking with you tonight, but I could look into that. I haven't really run across any tiny houses, so.
And Kevin, what is your concern, if I may, just kind of, what's the purpose and what?
Just seeing, looking around the country and seeing a lot of interest in tiny houses and a lot of interest in people turning shipping containers into multiple of those stacked together, making homes out of them, making workshops out of them. Just a lot of interest in both of those things.
I actually have a client out on Shabig Island that was going to do that. He was going to take 2 containers and make them into his art studio.
Jim, the big push on the state level was to have tiny homes basically be registered as RVs so that they wouldn't need to meet specific building standards. They would be under a whole different world, and that would be, they'd be registered for travel over the road.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is to Kevin's point, is what is the appropriate zoning location for those types of homes?
One of the things I did just think of from fire protection standpoint is escape windows, that they're appropriately sized, especially where it's such a small building. That would be something to look at.
Jim, where did the senior living thing shake out? I missed my time away from the board. Remember, there was a project that was up, I think, on Valley Road that was going to be designated for senior living, 55 plus.
That did get reapproved.
Right.
My understanding is, I don't think Alex was here, but I think while Scott was here, they forested that, they cut that lot. And that was John Chase. And my understanding was he was going to come back and start that. Now, I don't know if this COVID situation has, delayed that at all. But in my conversations with him, he told me that he would be coming back to that soon, but that was 6 months ago.
So at the time that it was approved, the board had lots of questions on how that is going to be managed, how the 55, I think it was, and what happens when you sell and there's a percentage. Is that all that within ordinance purview, or do we not get involved in that?
I'd have to go back and see how we address that. Obviously, to your point, that was a pre-approved subdivision. We changed the ordinance. We took the age limitation out. We didn't, but people before us did. And but because that was kind of had that grandfather status, all we looked at was the road redesign. So that status is still there. So I guess we may have to pull up, our older ordinance to see how it was to be established, because it would fall under those older regulations.
Okay.
Also had a question.
I think it would be a homeowners association to some extent. There's definitely a homeowners association. I don't know how those documents would be set up, but we probably would have to take a close look at that. And then I guess going forward, Bob, to your point, is how do we ensure that it stays in that percentage of over 55 versus normal single family?
Okay.
Where does the town stand on the comprehensive plan? Do we have to do that every 10 years, or what's the cycle on that?
It is every 10, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the state planning office hasn't been reviewing those for some time now, but my understanding is that if you want, and maybe Alex understands this as well, if you want state or federal grants for certain housing projects, you have to have an approved comprehensive plan. Now, usually it's a large burden on the community to find volunteers. It's a long process. I don't know if the town has had any discussions as far as moving forward with setting up a comprehensive plan committee, but typically that's what happens. You look at your previous goals, and then you set new goals for the next 10 years, and you establish a whole new plan. But you have to host a numerous number of public meetings and get input from the community when you do that. I think
we could put Lenny on the spot. I'm sure he has an updated on that.
I know Gray just is in the process of finalizing theirs.
I could be incorrect in my recollection, but I thought there was language in our comprehensive plan somewhere that said it should be reviewed every 10 years.
I believe you're correct. That's the standard I believe that's kind of the standard language that the state administers. But that's back when there was an active state planning office, and now that's been altered. And I think a lot of communities are behind the 8 ball on their comprehensive plan.
All right.
Now, it wouldn't be a bad idea just in general to have, set some goals going forward. I often find that the economy has more of a role in those than anything.
Anything else?
The 25% limit rule for clearing a house lot. Should we look at that? Isn't there a rule? Aren't we limited to how much we can clear on the lot down to 25%? A maximum of 25%?
You're talking standard zoning or shoreland zoning?
Standard zoning, isn't it?
I'd have to take a look. Aware of any?
I don't think it's 20, 75%.
25%. You can't clear more than 25% of your lot. I don't know if is that on the lots or.
It doesn't sound familiar, Greg.
I understand it wasn't enforced by the code officers.
That it is correct. It's in the land use ordinance, it says that you can't exceed 25% of the lot area or 15,000 square feet, whichever is greater. It's clearing and condition for development. And whether or not it's been enforced, that I don't know.
Rumor has that.
What are you looking for, Greg?
Why are we limiting it to 25% of it?
Well,
being clear, like, I'm not talking about a shoreland zone. We're talking outside of it.
no, I'm guessing.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm guessing it may. Obviously it's something before I came along, but I'm guessing it
Yeah.
has to do with creating buffers between residents. But I don't
Yeah.
know 25% to your point. I don't know. It could be 50. I don't know. I think if you do consider something like that, you should consider at least a stand of vegetation between lot lines or off a lot line, like a setback or something. But if somebody owns 40 acres and they want to cut 20 in the middle, does it hurt anybody? Probably not.
But we already have buffers in the ordinance.
You do, but when you have existing single-family lots, to Greg's point, you don't really have that jurisdiction as far. You have setbacks for the structure, but I don't think you have setbacks for buffers. Is what I'm saying.
It looks like it was put in the ordinance in '98, so it's not that old.
Well, I guess if I want to, of my lot, I ought to be able to.
All right, we can look at it, Greg.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all.
I think, I do think, I think, Greg, with proper forestry management, to your point, that there should be allowed maybe in excess of that, but I think we also should be cognizant of the fact we do need to watch out for, buffers on sidelines and rear lines.
Not sure why, but I understand what you're saying. If you want a buffer, provide your own. Don't make your neighbor provide it.
That's why we have setbacks for structures too. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know what I think anyway.
I know
Well,
what
if we
you
just
want.
Greg, we always know that.
Greg just likes to cut trees.
I do, but they grow
Hey.
back,
Hey, Greg, that is something I did want to reach out, and I haven't got an answer yet, but I know we should be looking to get the new language in the ordinances soon that we just passed from last year. I haven't seen it in print yet, but obviously we need to get that. I'll talk to Sue to see when that's coming, because those are in effect now, and they should be at least published, at least on the version that's online.
Okay.
Yep. Good.
You reminded me that, Greg, because now we have,
Now timber harvesting's allowed.
only 25% though, Greg.
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
that's exclusive to a house lot, not a wood lot. though.
That's correct. I know. I was just kidding with you.
I know.
Everybody happy? Anyone else comments for next week's workshop?
And if you do, and if you could, I mean, as I've said in the past, if you could just send along any emails or concerns you have with anything you see in the ordinance that we might want to take a look at, forward it to Alex and myself, and we'll just kind of compile a list and bring it back for everybody to share.
Rick and Jeff, are you still hanging here for anything for the board or just for somebody?
Did you ask me?
Just listening in, just listening in.
Okay, all right, no problem.
Thank you.
We're not changing the back lot.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we can get a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
And we need a voice vote.
Aye.
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 All right, aye, it carries. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Keep up the great work.